Hello everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome everybody, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Let me see where you're joining us from. I'm connecting on YouTube. Everyone, whether you're on YouTube or on Instagram, just say hello everybody. Today I'm in Johannesburg, so it's a little bit tricky every time I'm in Johannesburg. It's like I'm learning to be in a Johannesburger, and so my lighting, my equipment is not the same. But listen here, it's going to work, right? It's going to work. So welcome. Tell me where you're coming from so that I can welcome you. Just indicate where you're from, and then I can welcome you. I'm still trying to get my stuff working properly here on YouTube. I can't see myself, so I'm wondering if anybody out there can tell me that they can see me. I see that there's no one else on YouTube, so there's something awkward happening, right? Let's just see. All right. Someone from Bloemfontein, welcome. Botswana, Gads, welcome. I'll be with you next week. I'll be in Gaborone next week. So if you're in Gaborone, come and join me at the Bikwe hike. Kilebogile from the Val. Welcome at the Val. I can see some people are checking in on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining me. I am struggling with the view, but it is okay. As long as you can hear me, that's great. I cannot see myself, so I'm wondering whether you can see me. But if you're on Instagram, I hope everything's going well. I can see someone from Fourways, Haude. Someone from Fourways joining us. Nothing is live on YouTube. I'm still here. YouTube is telling me everything is live, but I don't know. I don't know when you say nothing is live. Please tell me more. You can't even hear me. Johannes, please check on YouTube and tell me whether you can hear me, because I can see there's now 23 people, but YouTube is a little bit weird because I can't talk to people on YouTube. So I'm not, you don't have access to the switch. I can't see, people can't tell me whether they can see me or not. Okay, so I would like someone to tell me whether you can hear, you can see me. Maybe you can't see me, but if you can hear, that's good enough. So someone from YouTube, please tell me. Naomi, thank you very much for joining me from Budapest. Naomi, Hungary, welcome. I think you were there last week. Thank you for coming back, Naomi. Tsietsi, my homeboy from Harankua, I can see you. Welcome. Your Highness Mom from Summerstrain in Port Elizabeth, you're welcome. Someone, I'm waiting for Johannes to tell me what's happening on YouTube, whether you can see me or not. I'm in Johannesburg, so it's a little bit tricky. I'm not on my usual setup. I've just moved into my new apartment in Johannesburg. I bought an apartment for when I'm in Johannesburg. Then I don't have to stay at an Airbnb. I've created my own Airbnb. So it's a little bit tricky. Moved in yesterday. A very nice place, but I'm not set up yet. Okay. Tebogo, Johannesburg, welcome. Keke from Bloemfontein, welcome. University of Pretoria is here in the house. Welcome, University of Pretoria. Someone tell me whether you can hear me on YouTube. Please tell me if you can hear me. I can see Abuyile, I can see Morgan, Sekato, Tseho, welcome. Lihle, you can see me and hear me on Instagram. I want to know whether on YouTube people can see me. At the same time, we're waiting for people to join us. It's a very important session today. We're talking about bouncing back from failure. Every one of us will experience some setbacks in life. Setbacks happen to the best of us. So today we are talking about how do you handle setbacks? How can we manage setbacks? Because setbacks are not a write-off of a person. It's not the end of you when you're experiencing setback. Setbacks are just a delay but you move on. Sometimes they're a necessary step, not even a delay, but something that you need to go through so that you can learn more. Someone is going to tell me what's happening on YouTube. Palesa from Netherlands, welcome. Welcome. I'm still welcoming people. There's someone from Sekato, from Polokwane. Welcome, Sekato. Sekato, thank you very much. Someone says gorgeous, mommy. Thank you. Gorgeous, which means he says gorgeous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Everett in Deep Kloof, welcome. You are hearing and see me on Instagram. Are you hearing and seeing me on YouTube? Please, someone check for me. Johannesburg. Johannes went to check. He hasn't been back yet. Okay, Sekato. Sekato, thank you. Love you, and I can't live without your wisdom. Sekato, thank you. That's so sweet. Very sweet. Thank you very much. Tebogo Mabusela, my person from Limpopo. You can see me, Tebogo, but you can hear me, but you can't see me. Okay, so I guess that's good enough. There isn't much I can do, it seems, from my side. I don't know how to make sure that you can see me. Let me see. Let me see if the webcam I'm opening here, visibility is to the public, and I'm trying to get webcam. Okay, choose broadcast type. My webcam, let's see. Use camera. All right, they're allowed. So why is it doing this? I've allowed YouTube to use my camera, but it's still not catching. It's not showing you me. I promise you I want you to see me, but unfortunately it's not showing. Let me just check again. Just be patient with me. We're checking whether there's anything I need to do to make sure that you can see me, because the Homabusela is making me aware that they can hear me on YouTube, but they can't see me. All right? You can hear me, but you can't see me. All right. I think I've done everything. I've put on everything. Visibility. How do you want to go live? Webcam. That's the right way. Okay. All right. We're not going to allow this to deter us. You can hear me. So let's go on. The people on YouTube, don't worry. As long as you can hear me, that's okay. If you want to see me, you go to Instagram. We're talking about bouncing back from failure. By the way, I call it failure now, just so that we are able to go on. But oftentimes what we go through, some of us do not call it failure, because it is just a temporary delay, but it doesn't mean you have failed. It's just a delay, and for a moment it's so excruciating, so disappointing, so painful, and so embarrassing. Everybody's looking at you, everybody's talking about you as if you have failed, but actually what you're experiencing is just a temporary delay. And so I want us to talk about that. We're just going to call it failure so that we have a common language that we understand. I have experienced it. You have experienced it. The people you respect have experienced it. Many people who have achieved greatness have gone through difficult times. But the problem is that some people go through the difficult time and they get so beaten by it and they stop. For some people, the difficult time is a divorce. For some people, the difficult time is being fired at work. For some, it's being excluded at university. Some, it's failing year one when you were the top student in your school. And suddenly, first year, you are excluded. And it feels very painful. It feels like the end. And today, I want us to say, what do you do? And I want to start with this idea that the reason why I don't call these things failure, I never call these things failure, is because in my view, it is not the end of your story. But here's the thing, you decide what's going to serve as the end of your story. Msa, I can see you. Thank you so much for joining me. I will call on you now. Just give me 5 minutes and I'll call on you. When I call on you, please ask to be joined and then I will accept you into the room and then we can have a conversation. Thank you, boy. Malakisto is going to join me as well. I hope, Malakisto, you are online. After having a conversation with Msa, I'm going to have 5 minutes and then I will call you back in. I'm going to have conversations with these two people, Msa and Lucky. Both of them are my sons in different ways, and so I know their stories. And I've been talking to Lucky lately to say, one thing that's going to make you succeed, or in fact, to make this what you see as a setback or a failure not mean anything, is if you own your story. Own your story. Okay, own your story. Right? If you don't own your story, you get stuck in it. So we start, the first step you do is to own your story. Owning your story means that you don't pretend it never happened. Never pretend it never happened. It happened, but it's not the end. It's just part of the journey to your victory. Your story, your end is a story of victory. Remember that in the Sunday sessions, what we're doing, we're playing to win. We play to win. We're not here to lose. That doesn't mean we're not going to experience challenges, setbacks, and so on. We are going to experience them. But we're here to win. We play to win. So, the first step to bouncing back from failure is owning your story. So, own your story. Own your story. That's the first thing you do. Own it. And say to yourself, this is not the end. This is just a delay. But we are on a journey to a bigger thing. And that's what you focus on. Where you focus on where we are going, not on where you are right now, right? You are here now, but you are going somewhere. You are going somewhere, and that's where you focus on. All right. So I'm gonna invite Msa. Many of you would know Msam Kize. Msam Kize is my son from UCT. And he lived at my house as the Vice Chancellor. From 2018, from the minute I became Vice Chancellor, Msa was there. Msa was there throughout the journey. And I've seen Msa's journey. Msa spent 8 years doing his 4-year degree in civil engineering. But I want to come to where he is now. I'm going to call him in. And what we're doing, I want you to know that Msa struggled through his studies, right? Not because he's stupid, not because he's not working hard. I can tell you, he never partied, he never played around, he wasn't jolling around, he was focused, right? And he will tell his story because it's also important. Now I want to, as we start, please invite parents because owning your story, parenting also plays a role here. But also the owner of the story is also important. Msa is extremely smart. He got very good results at matric. In fact, at his matric dance at his school, he was so good that they didn't even get someone to come and give the matric dance speech. They asked him to give the guest speech, even though he's one of the matriculants. He was one of those matriculants who were successful and very much highly celebrated. But he didn't pass at a go, living with the professor who is a vice chancellor of the university where he is studying. He still took 8 years to finish a 4-year degree. But right now, I'm talking to him and he's joining me from Belgium. He is now in Belgium. He's not 30 years. He's not 30 yet, right? Even though he finished a 4-year degree in 8 years, he still completed, he still graduated, he got a job. By the time he walked the graduation stage, he already had a job, right? And within 2 years of that, he already has an opportunity to go overseas, and that's where he is right now. And I want him to talk to us about his story. I will talk to him. I know his story, so I will ask him questions, and so that you can understand this. It doesn't matter. It's not about me. Of course, as a parent, I played a role, but it's more than that. It's him. What did he do? What did he tell me as as his mother. Okay? And then we'll talk about how did I intervene, because you can't help someone who is just giving in, who's just giving up, throwing in a towel. It's very difficult to help them. Or who just says, give me money. Because young people today think, you just give me money, all my problems are solved. No. Money solves your pain short-lived. You got to get help that allows you to generate the money. All right. Now, Musa, I don't know if you're online. There you are. He's joining me from Belgium, from Brussels. And I'll ask him first, Musa, where are you? I tried to call you in. There you go. Hey, boy. How are
Hi,
you?
can you hear me? I'm
How are you?
good.
Wow, you're growing a beard even.
It's very expensive to cut hair here, so I'm saving my money. I'm not even. It's not a choice. It's not a choice. It's not a choice. Firstly, Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Thank you, boy. Thank
How
you.
has
Thank you.
how has your day been so far?
Everything is good. Everything is good. As you can hear, I've just come into my. Thank you. You're making it fun. I'm in my new apartment. I'm loving it. It's wonderful in Joburg.
Yeah.
So yeah. So when I'm here, I'm not going to an Airbnb anymore. I'll be here. So
Okay.
welcome, young man. You are in Belgium. Give people a sense of where you are in Belgium. You're in Brussels, right?
No, no, I'm in
Well, in
Leuven,
Leuven.
which
You are
yes,
in
I'm in
Leuven.
Leuven, which is 25 kilometers away from Brussels. Brussels is the capital city. I I'm doing my master's research in KU Leuven, which is a university here in Belgium.
Okay. So, guys, you're getting it right. So, we're talking to him in Leuven. And when did you get there?
This on the 4th or 2nd of February, around at the beginning of this year.
Fantastic. So tell us about this opportunity. What is this opportunity? You are doing your masters. Are you registered with the University of Leuven, K Leuven, or you are registered with UCT?
I'm registered with three universities, KU Leuven, VBU, which is something like Free something something University of Brussels, which is another campus, and then
Free University of Brussels.
I think so. I think so. I think that's what
It
it means.
is
But
Freya is free.
okay.
It's in Germany as
Yes.
well.
Yes. And then UCT. So my supervisor is in UCT. He's the one who also organized or said we should apply to this opportunity, and yeah.
So this is a collaboration between three universities, and you are in the master's program, so that's why you're registered with three universities.
Yes. So yes, I'm in a master's program with UCT, and my research is in wastewater.
Okay,
Uh,
great.
yeah, and then because of what my research is in, it UK Leuven also does a lot of great research, in fact, with wastewater, and so does another university in Amsterdam. And UCT is also world known, in fact, with wastewater, which is absolutely interesting. And I think then these universities have a partnership in terms of working together, in terms of sharing knowledge, and that's how I basically then got this opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. Let me pause to the people and say, I told you before Musa joined us that, I mean, listen to what Musa is saying. Look at him. He's not 30 years old yet. And now he's in Leuven. But I want us to rewind back to where you come from to get here. Let me tell you, boy, everybody wants the opportunity that you have right now. Everybody wants to be where you are. I'm sure you
Mm,
get a lot of people who say, "Oh, you're so lucky." Oh, wara wara. Some of them even think that I organized it for you, but no, I have nothing to do with it, right?
mm,
And the story that we want to tell is, you are here now. It's amazing, but you
mm,
spent 8 years doing your civil engineering degree. How did that happen?
mm,
Let's go back there, and then we'll then join the story where we will get to you working for Zutari. But let's start. When you passed matric,
mm,
you accepted to UCT, and it was a great moment. You had a scholarship. First year, what happens?
Um, First year, actually, I did well for the first year and a half. And I think what is interesting, and whilst I was thinking about this conversation, was that life happens with the goals that we've planned. Life is simultaneous. There's other events happening around the world as we're sitting here and planning our goals. So I think just off the bat, there was a couple of things that were mishaps. And so, for example, I took a bus alone from Durban to Cape Town. I didn't even have a phone. So if you remember, during the time there was Fizz Must Fall, I spent the first 3 weeks of my time in university, excited about university, sleeping in a stranger's room in Forest Hill. And I didn't even have a phone, so my mother had called somebody else. Um, it was just like a long story of verbs. But I spent the first 3 weeks sleeping on the floor of another girl that I met. And I think that for me was already kind of like set the tone in terms of missing orientation, not necessarily having groups of people, which I think is another big thing in terms of advice. Working with other people. And I think that's what orientation does. It allows you to meet people and actually work in those groups. First year happened. I think in first year, I failed 2 courses, if I still remember properly, which is why I say it was one of the best years compared to the other years. And then second year happened, and I think we met in third year. Oh yeah, in third year at my time at UCT. But in terms of courses, I think I was still in second year, because there was still some courses I was doing in second year. And when we met, if you remember, I think that December, that was the first time that I was actually going to get excluded, or that was going to be my first exclusion. But even during that time, which this is a personal story, but if you remember when we met, I told you about a domestic incident that had happened at home where my siblings got arrested. So I'm still at school, and there's still things that are happening in my life at the back, and I think those did have an impact. But coming into UCT, in the back of my head, I had this idea that I'm a hard worker, and I made decisions that I thought would excel me in terms of hard working. And one of those were things like, oh, I won't drink or I won't party. And then seeing people who actually drink and party, or people who actually have a life outside of school doing well and going forward, I think also that made it worse. And I think that's another thing, especially with setbacks. If you do not know how to frame them very well, they tend to do way worse than what they are supposed to do in that set time. Because the way you then think of them is you think of everything else, right? So you're thinking, oh, I failed this test and I don't drink. What? And I don't. And really, it's just like you failed the test. Focus on what happened with that test and what is it that you need to do to fix that test. Then yeah, so that December, I got excluded. I think I got excluded. Oh, I had some
But
subs.
I remember us sitting in your bedroom and you were crying, and I hugged you because you were excluded. And but there was never a time during that period of your crying where you said, "I'm out, I'm done." You still wanted to go on, and so to calm you down and say, then you appeal, you keep going. Was key.
Yeah,
Why were you so determined to get this degree despite the fact that it was year three, and you were excluded more than once, boy?
yeah, yeah, and I think the exclusion you talking about is the second one, I believe. Because the first one I had to write I remember I had to write the subs in January, and if you remember, it was December. I had gone home, and then you said I must come back to come write the subs, and I think that's when our relationship started. But that was the first one, and I think then there was the second one, which is the one that you're talking about. And I think, especially if you frame things in terms of when so when you're not able to actually structure the setback the way that it's supposed to be structured, you blame everything else. And as I was saying, for example, and they do have an influence, which for me is a good thing. I do think external things do have an influence, but we can control them. But the point I want to make here, which I think is what made the second one very personal and very sad, was that before I was like, oh, at home, this what happened, happened. But in this case, the second one, I was kind of shielded from being at home. I was staying with you. I didn't have to think about a lot of things. So things like food or shelter or whatever. So really, it was a question of what is it then that is occupying my mind rather than actually being occupied by school. And I think that's when things hit the road, because you then start thinking that you are incapable of doing this. It's not necessarily everything that you've been blaming. It's the fact that you keep on thinking that you are incapable of doing this. And I think there's two things.
Go ahead.
And I wanted to say, I think then there's two things, because your question was about what did I do or etc. But I think there's two things. So the first one was, I think throughout the whole degree, I knew that civil engineering is easy. Like, not even in a bad way, or not even in a bragging way, but I knew that it was easy. And I knew that I was understanding it. And I think that was seen in terms of the relationships I had with my lecturers and that I have now. Because
let me pause you there, because I want us to make progress. I want to be able to get an opportunity with Lucky. But here's the thing. I mean, you are right. There was never a time where you presented yourself as an incapable student. And it was clear to me, as your mother in Cape Town, when your mother in KwaZulu-Natal just wanted you to come with a degree, to be honest with you. Your mother, your family in KZN, they wanted you to come back with a degree. I needed to make sure that you get it. Okay, I understood my responsibility, but you needed to do it. And it was very clear in my mind that you can get it. You know you are capable. You never lost your confidence. Okay. And I remember that in one of those crying days, you had failed again. You were not excluded this time, but you were not completing. It was a semester that we thought, damn, we're done. And then there we go, boom, you're not done. And then you complain, and you said, but Ma, this is weird. I help a lot of people, and everyone that I have helped has done well. And in fact, the problems that we were doing as I was helping them, some of them were in their exam, and they got them right. But I failed. How come? And I remember thinking to myself that, you know, there are times when you speak, you pronounce certain words in a weird way. And I was like, what? What are you saying? Sometimes you write, you skip words. And I used to worry as a parent, thinking, is he dyslexic? What's going on here? And that was the year that we decided, I think you should go for educational psychology, to a second evaluation to get, because there was something about you that you were studying. You were always at library or in study halls, and you were helping people. You were a typical excellent student from my experience as an educator. And so tell me about that. Like, talk about, because people are saying resilience and dedication is commendable. Of course, it's commendable.
Yeah.
But there's also something about reflecting on yourself. What is it that I'm struggling with? And then telling it to me. Like, if you hadn't told me that the people that you have helped, you are helping people, because I don't see you when you help your friends. You help people with problems. You see that they have passed, but you don't pass. So walk us through that, so that some people can stop and say, what's happening with me?
Yeah.
And someone might be able to intervene.
Yeah, and I think that's the second thing that I was talking about in terms of identifying the issue. And so the psychologist or that assisted me in terms of understanding in the way that I think, the way that I approach issues. But also, in fact, it also assisted me in terms of understanding where do I thrive and where is my brilliance at. And so that whole process was about going to a psychologist and well, it's educational psychologist, and they do like a number of tests which looks at your arithmetics, how you write and how you speak, etc. And one of the things that came out of that was that I needed I think 15 minutes extra for every hour, right? And so if you look at that at year number 6 of being at university, and you've spent 6 years of writing every exam as if you cognitively process certain things like everybody else, puts you at a disadvantage. And I think that's one of the things that we've spoken about in terms of you then have certain students or certain people who know that they're brilliant and who've been brilliant, and in certain cases they don't perform, and then they identify that performance as if it's them specifically that don't perform. And for me, that opportunity, one, allowed me to see myself and see how I process things, but two, it actually has led to almost all the opportunities. I mean, if you remember, the reason that I'm here is because of a project I did in my final year. I proposed my
Yeah,
own thesis in final year.
yeah.
I went to Germany, in Berlin last in 2023. Because of that, I won a couple of awards because of that. And I'm here. And I mean, even it's actually interesting. Even the things that I'm gonna do next, whether I go work or research, etc., they're all based on an idea that I had in fourth year. And
And let's
it's a
be clear
testament, yeah.
that sir.
Mm,
There were projects that were proposed for the class, and you said to the professor, "Can I do a different project?" Because you were
exactly.
passionate about that water project, and you said,
About,
"Can I
yeah.
do this?"
It's
And
even
that was a
for
tougher
last
route to
year.
go.
Even now, and this is, I think, the other interesting thing. So you would assume that someone who spent that long in university would shy away from doing their masters because you're jumping back into the same. And then, I mean, you said it also earlier. I was working for Zutari, the best engineering company in Africa and in Asia. It's doing very well. It's an absolutely amazing company. And
You
after
are
2 years,
jumping steps, Nsa. You are jumping
oh no,
steps. Okay,
okay, sorry.
so here's where I
Yeah,
wanted to just pause a bit.
yeah.
You spent 8 years, year number 6, on year number 5. That's when we spotted the problem. And I sent you
Mm,
to educational therapy, psychological therapy. And people need to understand this. There are people who are qualified educational psychologists who then do assessments on children or young people. And they do a lot. I mean, Musa can talk about that another time, but I think it took 3 months. Of course, it's not cheap. It was about 800 rands per session per week where you
mm,
went. But it was very helpful. At the end of it, they bring a diagnosis and then a recommendation on how to deal with this problem. And to deal with the problem, there was prescription, but there was also, because anxiety, high levels of anxiety was one of the things that was diagnosed. There were all sorts of things. I don't want to pick all your diagnosis online, but there was a big. I remember when you came with the reports, and I sat there reading it, and you were crying. All right, you were crying. Of course, thank God that we were able to pay those sessions every week that you were going to. But then we got the solution. And one
mm,
of the solutions was that, given the high levels of anxiety, you should write separately from the other students,
mm,
and you should get 15 minutes for every hour of the test or exam.
mm,
And that helped because it removes the anxiety. And by the way, everybody can get it. Everybody can get
mm,
it.
mm,
Everybody can get that as long as you go to an educational psychologist, and they can do all those battery of tests, and then they can diagnose. I think it's important to go to indicate that and so that everyone knows
mm.
that this kind of help, of course, it needs money, and we should not underestimate the fact that these things are expensive. You do need someone to help. There are children with parents who can pay, and parents are not even doing that. If you have a
Mm,
medical aid, it helps. If it doesn't, you pay payment. But that helped. That changed the corner a bit
mm.
because at least you were writing separately, right? I don't want us to jump to
Yeah,
Zutari because I want
yeah,
us to
yeah.
do that. So that helped. How did that help?
Well, so one, and maybe the example you spoke about earlier on when I was speaking about how I would explain some concepts to colleagues, it, it became very clear clear why I would panic in exam rooms, right? And I would be able to understand and grasp the concepts, which is why I was saying earlier on that I had this great relationship with the lecturers, because they would see that in class I'm engaging and I'm coming to class. I'm coming to the tutorials after class. I'll be engaging, but when it came to time to actually then perform or see the results, I couldn't. Or I remember there was even a maths test where I was able to do the arithmetic part of or the algebra part of the exam, and when it came to the part where I have to insert numbers, I was doing it wrong. And it was clear that I understand the theory and understand the core principles. However, I was struggling with actually then communicating those principles to the examiner, and which is another huge thing. Communicating those principles to the examiner in a way that the examiners want. And I saw a comment earlier on, because one of the interesting things here is that here at KU Leuven is that some of the exams are actually oral exams. You write your solution and then you go to the professor and you explain it to the professor. And I think those that setup allows you to also then thrive in a certain way. So of course, I do think there's limitations in terms of our educational system. I think that has been spoken about a lot, but I think what then those educational psychologists or that report did for me is also to reaffirm my my knowledge in my own abilities, my knowledge in the fact that I didn't end up at UCT because I was lucky, or I didn't end up where I am because I was lucky, but because specifically the environment that I was in and the situations that I'd gone through had made it difficult for me to process certain things, and I was unable to control my anxiety, because anxiety is fine, and which is what one of the things my psychologist was saying is that it's certain levels of it that becomes unbearable. And I do think those moments when you're in the exam room, when you think of the consequences of not doing well, and that takes over your mind, then you start not performing very well. So those reports were really good.
Okay, I see Naomi's asking a question, and I see that is 22:06. Now I'm tempted to say to Lucky, I think you and I should talk next week so that I do more time with Msa. Lucky, I know that you're online. You and I will talk next week. It will be a different focus, but it will be very helpful. I think the questions that people are asking as Msa is talking are very useful. Naomi's question is important. Naomi, here's the thing. I mean, universities have counseling centers. Ideally, in those counseling centers, there should be an educational psychologist who can do this diagnosis. In 2022, whilst I was VC at UCT, one of the things that I had put in place was to create a post for an educational psychologist. And my hope is that the person came in to join the university in 2023. But the thing that you should ask for in every university, instead of just having just a bunch of psychologists who are useful, have one who's got credentials who can do the diagnosis. Because when students get excluded, I mean, and you can see when a student is on a spectrum or has got a problem, you can see they fluctuate, and that's what Msa was doing. I mean, my older son was also doing that. 1 minute they are up there performing really well, the next test they're down, they're up, they're down. Like they're smart, but they don't get it. Like you wonder, and they don't party, they don't waste time. They are very studious people. They don't drink, they don't smoke weed, And as a parent, I could easily say, but what's going on here? But also you see that the child is also interested. But I think in a university, you can also see from the performance of the students, and maybe if a university has got an educational psychologist in the counseling center, they can do those diagnoses, and then they can, of course, you don't want to be in a situation where every student writing individually. But what Msa is saying, what you just said, Msa, and what's happening in Leuven is that pen and paper exams are not the only way to assess whether the student has grasped the knowledge or not. There are other ways of assessing, all right? There are other ways, and so pen and paper exams are good, but they come with other pressures that students who struggle with anxiety and other things can cope with. So again, it's a challenge to academics to think outside the box in terms of how else can we assess. Okay, so thank you, Naomi, for asking that question. So we've gone through that. Now, you then Here's the thing that you haven't talked about, that I, as a parent, and I say I as your mother, because look here, Uma Bengu has got no experience of what I experienced going with you this journey, right? And I want to share this with people, with other parents who are with their children in the house, to notice this. Something happened when you were doing your work experience. You remember when you were at the Amazon building? I have never seen you that excited. And I remember that the first week that you came back, you said, hey, you know, they gave you a group of people to manage, and you have to manage them. You are not really doing the building and the whatever. And I remember asking you, when you took the civil engineering, what did you think you're going to do? And you said to me, Ma, I love cement. I love the smell of cement. And I remember you getting very passionate about how much you love civil engineering. And I was like, wow, this kid really likes this. And I think you had 2 more years to go. So there was no doubt in my mind that this is the thing that you like, you can succeed in it, and you really are passionate about it. And then, of course, not only were you doing that, you were doing a work experience or work integrated learning at the Amazon building in Cape Town, but you popped into Zutari. You just talked about getting a job in Zutari. It wasn't that simple. It wasn't that trivial. So please, can you talk about how you got into contact with Zutari, how it happened? I can't remember whether it was just Saisi or you walked in as they were working on a construction site. Did you see what I mean? And these are things that young people have to do. So please talk about that.
So the first one, which I think the first point in terms of loving cement or loving, and I think that's the main thread that you need to have. I've been listening to a lot of philosophy in terms of purpose and all of that. And I think, especially when you're struggling with whatever it is that you're doing, you need to always ask yourself, why did you decide to do it? And in some cases, especially when things get bad, it gets blurry. And it gets blurry because you start looking at numbers instead of looking at what is it that you wanted to do. Because in my case, for me, which is why I ended up in water, I think it was really just finding solutions to critical questions or finding solutions to things, to problems that would affect a lot of people. And when you are in the deep, which, by the way, which is another interesting thing. I'm in the deep even now, like not even like right now, I'm actually solving a lot of problems. When you're in the deep, I think it's very important to ask yourself why and what is it that you're trying to do. And and then it becomes easier. The problems that you have around you that seems like giants literally become shorter because you then understand where you're going and the top of the hill that you want to go and go up to. So the in terms of the work experience, and I think this is what I really think also what the psychologist or that psychologist reports did, because it doesn't only just highlight what problems you have, it also highlights where you're good at and what skills you can leverage. And so for me, one of the things that I quickly learned on was my ability to, so if we're in a group, I could come up with a solution, but I would be best at explaining the solution to the rest of the people. And I remember one of the things with Zutari was they were working on a project at UCT with water, where they were looking at saving water, saving water at UCT, changing shower heads and changing the way the pumps work, etc., etc. And Manfred saw my research or what I was doing for my final year, and then told them and said that, hey, there's this guy who's doing something that is similar to what you're doing. And then they asked me to come into the office. And the reason why I believe that story is important for me is also two things. Zutari is such a big company that I think you do like 3 interviews before you even get the job. You need to apply in April for you to get the job in November. And when I looked at my marks, I knew that I wasn't even going to go past the first phase of interviews, which I think is with HR, before you even speak to the engineers, because my marks really were dismal. But when I spoke to them, when I explained to them what I'm trying to do, my research and the problem that I'm trying to solve, they asked me, "Do you want to work here?" And it wasn't even an interview. And I think that's another thing of actually always being prepared to present yourself or represent what it is that you're doing the best way possible. One of the podcast I was listening to today or yesterday or something like that was speaking about how the equations of life and how we succeed in life is talent, hard work, and luck. But you need to do the first two yourself for luck to meet you. And so, in fact, when I was resigning, one of the jokes or stories was the fact that I never interviewed for the job at Zutari. And if you again take and look at where I am with my marks, I shouldn't be here. But again, that is based on my lecturers knowing me and seeing me do the work outside and saying that I really think you should do research on this. And so I think it really speaks to honing your own strengths and knowing your own strength and sticking to your own strengths.
Great. That's very helpful, because imagine someone who did the degree for 8 years. When they completed, before they even graduated, they've got a job at one of the top engineering companies, not just in South Africa, but a multinational. So that's phenomenal achievements. And by the way, we are not talking about the other sides, Musa. I mean, I was with you every semester when your friends were graduating. Every time there's graduation, people you came to campus with were graduating. And I used to think, damn, should I send him away so that he doesn't have to see? And before I do that, you would say to me, "Oh, I'm going to take pictures for so and so." And blah,
I
blah,
was
blah.
about to say that.
No, I mean that's actually phenomenal. That's what I'm saying to you. Mother and you has got nothing on me when it comes to mommy, right? It's got mommy of the diapers. I've got the mommy of the other side. Like, I used to think, damn, I'm thinking I should like somehow find a way to send him away so that he doesn't have to have his heart broken seeing people that he started with, people that were doing first year when he was doing third year and he was helping them. Now they are graduating, they are leaving him. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that you have to have a high capacity for shame. You faced it.
Yeah.
You never ran away from it. Tell us
Oh,
about it. A
yes.
little bit. Don't
Oh,
too
yes.
much. We've got 10 minutes.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a very good way to say it, actually, that you need to have high capacity for shame. And I think the
Yeah.
biggest one was the fact that, especially because people don't understand this, on year number 4, the people that I started with were graduating. On year number 5, the people that I mentored in second year were graduating. On year number 7, by year number 8, and the other interesting thing also is that I started the photography a business, or started taking pictures, I think in third year, because of also
Yeah.
just like struggling and everything. My clientele increased when it came to the people that I was that were at my that I started with, and so it like, but I think the biggest thing,
But at the
which
same time, people thought you were cruising nicely. You were the vice chancellor's son in a Mercedes Benz, taking pictures. People thought, this one is playing around. But we know
is
what was
and
happening.
and the other thing, which I think is especially with the point of shame, you
Yeah.
can always find someone who's doing better than you. If you look for it,
Yes.
you're going to find someone who's doing better than you. You can always find
Yeah.
someone who could be where you want to be. And the truth is, I'm sitting here with people who are 24, 25 doing their masters, and it's a
Yeah.
fact that I'm older than them. 1, 2. Even when I started at work, the
Yeah.
person who was mentoring me was someone that I had started with, who had 2 years of experience, right?
Yeah.
And even at work, you could remind yourself over and over. And the truth is, life will do that, or you could allow yourself to do that. The strength of the having a huge bandwidth for shame is not necessarily not necessarily identifying shame, but it's identifying that you have your own journey and you can explain
Yes.
how you are where you are. And that's the biggest thing. And I think maybe people are looking at us. I might be wrong, but my biggest thing is always thinking that I don't. Everyone else has their own problems. Like,
Yeah.
if I spend time trying to identify who's looking at me, I will really waste a lot of energy, power trying to identify those people. Everyone else has their own problems, and this idea that there are people looking at us, and another all those people that I was taking pictures of, none of them reminded me that I was supposed to be graduating. Like none of them, it wasn't a main thing. So this idea of shame might be actually a personal thing more than actually an external thing. And I think that's where it goes to, especially even with rebranding or repivoting your life, or even starting over at 40 or 75. It's really, you need to make a decision about what do you want to do. The reason why I'm saying this also is deciding to leave Zutari, like it's almost like you get the girlfriend that you were looking for like 2 years, and then you decide to leave them. I could justify that reason. I could say right now, this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, why I left, and this is where I'm going. And it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else except for me. And of course, you need to be able to then fund it yourself and do all those things. But it goes back to the point also in terms of not giving up, betting on yourself. When other people, especially investors, put money into a company and they think the company is going to do well,
Yeah.
you need to be able to do that with yourself. And it doesn't have to be money. It can be learning a new skill. It can be going for a new job. It could be applying for a job that seems to have way higher
Yeah.
demands than you do. Betting yourself, for me, I think is the biggest thing. Like knowing that, hey, it's man, like it's me. Like there's nobody else. Like it's me. And yeah, for me, I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. All right, Msa, thank you very much. I think we've sort of covered the whole story. We've got 7 minutes, and I want to close up. But before I do that, let me thank you for your willingness to share this. I know the story, and I wondered when I asked you to come and join me whether you'd be willing, and you accepting this says to me you are willing to own your story. Owning your story gives rise to victory. You creating a story of victory, but you can never have a story of victory until you own your current story. That doesn't mean it's easy now. You may be there in Belgium, but it's not easy. It may look posh, but it's not easy. You are going to get many challenges, and remember, nobody succeeds on their own. Okay. Some people, we are talking here right now, some people are talking about what about NSFAS students, and they are right. Sometimes there will be another kid who goes through everything that you are going through, but they will not have a kheti who's willing to pay fees over and over again when there's no scholarship, who's willing to nurture and accommodate and not give you a loan. Or not give you a loan so that you pay when you graduate. That when you graduate, you can go out there and that's fine. But they paid their money, they paid their time, and they whatever. Some young people don't have that luck. But I'm saying to those who have, to carry it with dignity. And so if you don't have that luck, you are there, there's still an opportunity. So thank you very much, Msa, for being willing to stand up and say, this is my story. I did 8 years. For a 4-year civil engineering degree. It doesn't make you less than. In fact, it has made you stronger. You know yourself better. You are navigating the world better. The fact that there are 24, 23-year-olds doesn't matter. Actually, life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So well done, and thank you very much, and all the best for the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ma. And yeah,
all right.
Have a wonderful day. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you very much. So I'm going on. Msa is logging out from the screen, but I want to pull out important sections about the conversation before we log out today. We've got 5 minutes to go. 5 minutes to go. Remember, to bounce back from failure, the first thing you need to do is to own your story. It is your story. It doesn't matter how painful it feels that you've been excluded, or you're struggling, or you've been fired. Own that story. It is your story. If you don't own it, you're not going to make progress. So start by owning it. And owning your story means that you stop blaming your background or other people around you or your employer or your lecturer, or you don't blame anybody. You say, it is my story. This is how I contributed to that story. You don't say, well, I was born with this disability or this problem, that's why I'm a... You say, this is my story. It's my story. But it's not the end of the story. It's still developing, and it's a story of victory. This is just one part of it. That's the first thing you do, own your story. The second thing you do is you do a critical reflection on why you are having the struggle that you're having. You see, if you haven't owned your story, you can't even do a critical reflection. That's what Musa had to do. Why is it that I'm struggling with this? That's why it was easier for me to help him, because he had done the reflection. If he hadn't done the reflection, it would have been very difficult. With all the money in the world, it wouldn't have been possible for me to help him. Living with him in the house, I wouldn't have been able to figure out what is it really that's the problem. I could just speculate, right? And so when I proposed a solution, let's go to an educational psychologist. He didn't become stubborn and whatever. He didn't just say, I have a mental health problem. You know, people just generalize, I have a mental health problem. We don't know what it is. It's a wide spectrum. So pause and look at what you're doing. Am I drinking too much? Am I spending too much? Am I smoking too much weed? Am I spending too much time partying, and that's why I'm not passing? Am I getting stressed by girlfriends who actually don't care? They move on. Okay, so do a critical reflection as to why you are finding yourself where you are. Am I being too much of an activist at work? You know, when actually I have nothing. I need the job. So maybe I'm being too critical. I'm being too much of a revolutionary. I'm treating this place of employment as if we are at a political rally. No, we are not. You must deliver. So do a critical reflection why you are where you are. Once you've done that, then you get help. Sometimes the help will be professional help. That's the third thing you do. The help may be professional help of a psychologist. It may be help of someone knowledgeable, a mentor, or someone that you respected to ask, hey man, you know, I have this problem. You don't go to them and say, hey, the world is doing this to me, and hey, they do this when you have noticed. You own the problem. And then you share your reflections. And then from there you ask for help from a knowledgeable person or a professional. Okay? So in that way, people can help. If you just come to me with all your blaming of everybody, all I'm thinking is that even if I try to help you, what's going to happen is that you're going to be blaming me. Do you see what I mean? So don't blame everyone. Own your story. It is your story. Okay? So just own it and just look at it. If I had done this, what could have happened? If I had done this, what could have happened? Right? And then, so that we can get to the root of the problem. Because this is not the end of you. This is just a delay. We can get better. You can get a better job. Maybe you need this experience. And then finally, number 4, have a high capacity for shame. There is no success without a high capacity for shame. If you don't have a high capacity for shame, you will not be willing to own your story. You will not be able to do a critical reflection because when we enter it, you won't be able to ask for help because you right when it. So have a high capacity for shame. And also realize that to implement some of the things, you really have to just keep your head up, knowing that some people will laugh. They might not tell you they're laughing, but they may be laughing. All you do is remain focused in your hyper. So 4 things as we close. It's 6 o'clock now. Own your story. It's your problem. Stop blaming your background, circumstances, or other people. Number 2, do a critical reflection on why you are having the struggle or the problem that you are experiencing. Number 3, get help. Ask for help from people who are better than you. Don't ask for help from people who are at your level or lower to make yourself feel better. Ask for help. Humble yourself. And number 4, have a high capacity for shame. Those are the starting points if you want to bounce back from failure. I'll see you again next week. We are going to continue with this. We'll tackle a different story. and you will learn a lot, because Lucky, who I'll be talking to next week, has got a completely different story. He experienced multiple exclusions from institutions. He had a drug addiction and alcohol addiction, and he's recovered from the addiction. He's picking up the pieces and he's moving on with the greatest of confidence. I am so inspired. So I'll see you again next week. Join me, same time, same place, Sunday session tomorrow, not tomorrow, but next week. Bye-bye.